She threatened me with death, but her eyes said something else entirely. The midnight encounter, the rain hammered against the cracked windows of the abandoned textile factory as Detective Marcus Reed crouched behind a stack of rotting crates. His breath formed small clouds in the frigid November air while he checked his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. 11:47 p.m. The anonymous tip had said midnight, and despite every instinct screaming that this was a trap, he couldn't ignore the possibility of finally catching the Crimson Killer. 3 bodies in 2 weeks, all found with identical crimson roses placed over their hearts. The media had dubbed the murderer the Crimson Killer, and the pressure from Captain Morrison was mounting with each passing day. Marcus had been a detective for 12 years, but this case felt different. Personal somehow, though he couldn't explain why. His radio crackled softly. "Reed, you copy?" Jenny Walsh's voice came through the static. His partner was positioned at the south entrance, her enthusiasm for the job still intact, despite 6 months of working homicide. "Copy, Walsh. Anything on your end?" "Negative. Just shadows and that lovely eau de mildew cologne this place is famous for." Marcus almost smiled despite the tension. Jenny's humor had been one of the few bright spots in an otherwise grim few months. The divorce papers from Caroline had been finalized last month, and the empty apartment he returned to each night felt more like a tomb than a home. A sound echoed through the cavernous space. Footsteps, deliberate and measured. Marcus tensed, his hand instinctively moving to his service weapon. The footsteps grew closer, accompanied by what sounded like humming. A woman's voice, melodic and hauntingly beautiful, drifted through the darkness. He peered around the edge of the crate and felt his breath catch in his throat. She stood in a shaft of moonlight streaming through a broken skylight, and Marcus had never seen anyone quite like her, tall and graceful, with raven black hair that cascaded past her shoulders in loose waves. She wore a fitted black coat that hugged her curves, and even from 30 feet away, he could see the predatory grace in her movements. But it was her eyes that held him captive, amber-colored and intense, scanning the warehouse with the alertness of a hunter. In her right hand, she held something that made Marcus's blood run cold, a crimson rose. His training kicked in and he slowly drew his weapon, keeping it low but ready. This had to be the killer. Everything fit. The rose, the late-night meeting, the way she moved like someone comfortable with violence. But something nagged at him, some instinct that whispered, this wasn't what it seemed. The woman stopped humming abruptly, her head tilting slightly as if she'd sensed his presence. When she spoke, her voice carried an accent he couldn't quite place. European, perhaps Eastern European. "I know you're there, detective," she said, her tone calm and measured. "Marcus Reed, Homicide Division, badge number 4729. Divorced, no children, lives alone on 5th Street in apartment 3B. Marcus felt ice form in his veins. She knew who he was, where he lived. This was definitely not a coincidence. "Step out where I can see you," she continued, turning slowly in his direction. "And keep your hands visible. I'd hate for this to end badly for both of us." Marcus hesitated for a heartbeat, then made his decision. He rose from behind the crates, weapon drawn but pointed downward. As he stepped into the moonlight, he got his first clear look at her face, and what he saw there confused him even more. She was beautiful, undeniably so, with sharp cheekbones and full lips. But her eyes. There was pain there, deep and old, mixed with a determination that spoke of someone who had lost everything and found purpose in the wreckage. This wasn't the face of a mindless killer. "Valeria Cross," she said, as if introducing herself at a dinner party rather than a potential crime scene. "And before you ask, yes, I'm the one you've been looking for. Though not in the way you think." "You placed those roses," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his system. "You killed those people." Something flickered across her features. Hurt, maybe even anger. "I placed the roses, yes, but I didn't kill them. I was too late each time, arriving only after he had finished his work." "He?" Valeria's grip tightened on the rose in her hand. "The real killer. The one who's been using my sister's favorite flower as his calling card. The radio at Marcus's belt crackled. "Reed, I heard voices. You need backup?" Before Marcus could respond, Valeria's free hand moved with lightning speed. Something silver flashed through the air and his radio exploded in sparks and plastic fragments. He looked down at the throwing knife embedded in what remained of his communication device, then back at her. "Impressive reflexes," he said, surprised by his own calm tone. "But now my partner's going to think I'm in trouble." "You are in trouble," Valeria replied, though her voice lacked real menace. "The question is whether you're smart enough to realize I'm not the source of it." She began walking toward him, each step deliberate and hypnotic. Marcus raised his weapon slightly, but something in her posture, the way her shoulders carried tension, the slight tremor in her hands, told him she was fighting some internal battle. "Stay back," he warned, though he wasn't entirely sure why he wasn't already calling for backup or attempting to arrest her. Valeria stopped about 10 feet away, close enough that he could see the tears threatening to spill from her amber eyes. "Do you know what it's like, Detective, to watch everything you love die while you stand helpless? To spend years tracking a monster, only to arrive moments too late, over and over again?" Her voice broke slightly on the last words, and Marcus felt something shift inside his chest. This wasn't the behavior of a cold-blooded killer. This was someone in pain, someone desperate for justice or revenge. "Who was she?" he asked quietly. "Your sister." "Lucia," Valeria whispered, and the name seemed to hang in the air between them like a prayer. "She was 19, beautiful, kind, everything I wasn't. She believed in people and goodness." Her jaw clenched. He took that belief and used it to lure her to her death. Marcus lowered his weapon slightly. "And the others? The recent victims?" "They all had something in common with Lucia. Young women with artistic talents all approached by the same man. He's escalating, getting bolder." She held up the rose. "This was Lucia's favorite flower. He leaves them to mock me, to let me know he remembers what he took from me." The pieces were starting to fit together in Marcus's mind, but he needed more. "Why didn't you come to the police? Why work alone?" Valeria's laugh was bitter. "Because the man we're after owns half the police force and most of the judges in this city. Because when I tried to report my sister's murder 8 years ago, the case mysteriously disappeared. Because justice and the law aren't always the same thing." Before Marcus could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed through the warehouse again. Multiple sets this time, moving with military precision. Valeria's head snapped toward the sound, and he saw fear flash across her features for the first time. "They found me," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "Who found you?" Instead of answering, she closed the distance between them in 3 quick strides. Marcus had a moment to register the warmth of her hand against his chest before she shoved him backward behind another stack of crates. He stumbled but managed to keep his footing, weapon still in hand. "Listen to me very carefully, Detective," she said, her voice urgent and low. "There are 6 men about to enter this warehouse, and they're not here to arrest anyone. They're here to clean up loose ends, which includes both of us now." "What are you talking about?" "The man who killed your 3 victims, who killed my sister. He knows I'm close to finding him. These are his people sent to eliminate the problem." She pulled another knife from somewhere inside her coat. "So you have a choice. You can try to arrest me and we both die in the next 5 minutes, or you can trust me, and maybe we both live to see morning." The footsteps were getting closer, and Marcus could hear low voices communicating in what sounded like Russian. His mind raced through the options. Everything about this situation screamed trap, but something in Valeria's eyes, desperation mixed with grim determination, convinced him she was telling the truth. "If I help you," he said quietly, "and we somehow survive this, you're going to tell me everything. No more games, no more half-truths." She nodded quickly. "Everything. But first we need to get out of here alive." A spotlight suddenly blazed to life near the main entrance, cutting through the darkness like a sword. Voices barked orders in Russian, and the sound of weapons being readied echoed through the space. Valeria pressed herself against the crates beside him, close enough that he could smell her perfume. Something exotic and expensive that seemed completely at odds with their current situation. When she turned to look at him, her amber eyes were inches from his own. "Touch me once and I won't spare you," she whispered, but there was something in her tone that suggested she didn't entirely mean the threat. "But if we're going to survive this, you'll have to trust me completely." Marcus found himself staring into those impossible eyes, seeing layers of pain and determination that spoke to something deep in his own damaged soul. "What do you need me to do?" Her lips curved into the ghost of a smile. "Follow my lead. Don't hesitate and try not to get us both killed." Before he could respond, she was moving, gliding through the shadows with the fluid grace of someone trained in violence. Marcus hesitated for only a moment before following, his detective instincts warring with something deeper, an attraction that had nothing to do with logic and everything to do with the dangerous woman who had just turned his entire world upside down. As gunfire erupted behind them and they ran deeper into the maze of abandoned machinery and forgotten dreams, Marcus realized that whatever happened next, his life would never be the same. Valeria Cross had threatened him with death, but her eyes promised something far more dangerous, a chance at redemption neither of them might survive. The dangerous alliance, the abandoned subway tunnel beneath the warehouse district, felt like descending into the underworld itself. Marcus followed Valeria through a maze of rusted pipes and crumbling concrete, his service weapon drawn and his mind reeling from the events of the past hour. They had escaped the warehouse through a hidden maintenance shaft, but not before he had gotten a clear look at their pursuers. Professional killers with military-grade equipment and the cold efficiency of men who killed for money. "How much farther?" he whispered, trying to keep the beam of his flashlight steady as they navigated the treacherous terrain. "Just ahead," Valeria replied, her voice barely audible above the distant sound of dripping water. "There's a safe house I've been using. We should be clear for now." They emerged into a wider section of the tunnel where someone had obviously spent considerable time and money creating a hidden sanctuary. Battery-powered lights cast a warm glow over what appeared to be a sophisticated command center, multiple monitors, communication equipment, and walls covered with photographs, maps, and documents connected by red string like something from a detective's fevered imagination. Marcus lowered his weapon, taking in the organized chaos around him. "How long have you been planning this?" 8 years, Valeria said simply, pulling off her black coat to reveal a form-fitting tactical vest underneath. 8 years of tracking Vincent Blackwood, learning his patterns, his associates, his methods. The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. Vincent Blackwood, billionaire philanthropist, city council member, and untouchable pillar of the community. He stared at Valeria in disbelief. "Blackwood? You're telling me Vincent Blackwood is the Crimson Killer?" Valeria moved to one of the monitors and pulled up a series of photographs. Marcus recognized the faces immediately. The 3 recent victims, but also dozens of others spanning nearly a decade. All young women, all beautiful, all bearing the same expression of terror, frozen in their final moments. "He doesn't kill them himself anymore," Valeria explained, her voice taking on the clinical tone of someone who had studied horror until it became routine, not since Lucia. "He learned to be more careful, to use intermediaries. But he still likes to watch, still likes to place the roses himself. It's the one weakness I've been able to exploit." Marcus studied the wall of evidence, his detective instincts cataloging connections and patterns. "This is enough to bring him down. Why haven't you gone to the FBI, to someone outside his influence?" Valeria's laugh was bitter. "Because men like Blackwood don't go to prison, detective. They make donations to the right causes, attend the right charity galas, and buy their way out of consequences. The only justice Lucia will ever see is the kind I can deliver personally." Before Marcus could respond, an alarm chimed softly from one of the monitors. Valeria rushed to the screen, her face paling as she read whatever information was displayed there. "What is it?" Marcus asked, moving to stand beside her. "Your partner," Valeria said quietly. "Jenny Walsh. She's been taken." Marcus felt the world tilt on its axis. The monitor showed surveillance footage from outside the warehouse. Jenny being forced into a black sedan by 3 men. Her struggles futile against their overwhelming numbers. "This is my fault," he said, his voice hollow. "I should have called for backup, should have—" "Blackwood knows about you now," Valeria interrupted, her amber eyes filled with something that might have been sympathy. "He took her to draw you out, to force you into making a mistake. It's what he does. He finds what people care about most and uses it against them." Marcus slammed his fist against the concrete wall, pain shooting up his arm. Where would he take her? Valeria was already moving, pulling up blueprints and satellite images on multiple screens. "He has several properties throughout the city, but for something like this—" She paused, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "Here. The Blackwood estate, specifically the old wine cellar. It's where he took Lucia." The words hung between them like a death sentence. Marcus looked at the aerial view of the sprawling mansion on the outskirts of the city. 30 acres of manicured grounds, private security, and enough wealth to make a small army disappear without a trace. "It's a fortress," he said, stating the obvious. "How do we get in?" "We don't," Valeria replied, but her tone suggested she was already formulating a plan. "He gets out. Blackwood is hosting a charity gala tomorrow night. 500 of the city's elite, full media coverage, the works. He'll never expect us to strike when he's most visible." Marcus stared at her. "You want to take him at a public event? That's insane." "It's the only time he's vulnerable. His security will be focused on the crowd, not on someone who knows the estate's layout." She turned to face him fully, and he could see the years of pain and planning in her eyes. "But I can't do it alone. Not anymore. He's escalated because he knows I'm close, and now he has your partner. We need each other." The words created a strange intimacy in the underground hideout. Marcus found himself studying Valeria's face in the soft light, the determined set of her jaw, the way her dark hair framed features that were beautiful, even marked by exhaustion and grief. There was something magnetic about her, something that spoke to the part of him that had always been drawn to impossible cases and lost causes. "If we do this," he said slowly, "and if somehow we manage to save Jenny and stop Blackwood, what happens to us? To you?" Valeria's expression softened slightly. "I don't think beyond tomorrow night, Detective. I haven't allowed myself to think beyond tomorrow night for 8 years. Marcus stepped closer, close enough to see the flecks of gold in her amber eyes. "Maybe it's time you started." For a moment, the air between them crackled with possibility. Then Valeria stepped back, her professional mask sliding back into place. "First we save your partner, then we end Blackwood. Everything else," she shrugged. "Everything else is uncertain." They spent the next 18 hours planning every detail of their assault on the Blackwood estate. Valeria's knowledge of the property was encyclopedic. She had blueprints dating back to the original construction, security patrol schedules, and detailed profiles of every guard on Blackwood's payroll. Marcus contributed his knowledge of police procedure and tactical planning, helping her refine what had been more of a suicide mission into something approaching a feasible operation. As evening approached, they prepared their equipment in companionable silence. Marcus had called in sick to avoid questions about his whereabouts, while Valeria made final adjustments to their communication devices and weapons. The intimacy of preparation, checking each other's gear, reviewing hand signals, synchronizing watches, created a bond that felt both professional and deeply personal. "There's something you should know," Valeria said as they prepared to leave the tunnel hideout. "About what happens if we don't both make it out?" Marcus paused in checking his service weapon. "We're both making it out." "Probably," she agreed. "But if something goes wrong, if Blackwood gets to me before I can finish this—" She pulled a small device from her vest. "This contains everything. Every piece of evidence, every connection, every detail about his operation. Promise me you'll make sure it reaches the right people." He took the device, their fingers brushing in the exchange. "Nothing's going to happen to you." Valeria smiled, and for the first time since he'd met her, it reached her eyes. "You know, Detective, 8 years ago, I thought justice was about revenge, about making Blackwood pay for what he took from me. But tonight, she paused, seeming to search for words. Tonight it feels like it might be about something more. They made their way through the city as darkness fell, moving separately until they reached the wooded hills surrounding the Blackwood estate. The mansion blazed with light, its windows revealing glimpses of elegantly dressed guests and elaborate decorations. From their position in the tree line, they could see security teams patrolling the grounds and limousines arriving in steady procession. "Remember," Valeria said through their earpieces, "Blackwood will have Jenny somewhere in the cellar level. While I create a distraction upstairs, you find her and get out. Don't wait for me." "What kind of distraction?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "The kind that ends with Vincent Blackwood finally paying for what he's done." Before he could argue, Valeria was moving through the shadows toward the mansion's service entrance. Marcus watched her go, admiring the fluid grace with which she navigated the security perimeter. Everything about her spoke to something primal in him, the way she moved like a predator, the absolute focus in her amber eyes, the dangerous intelligence that had kept her alive through 8 years of hunting a monster. His earpiece crackled. "I'm in. Moving toward the main ballroom now. You should have a clear path to the cellar access in 60 seconds. Marcus began his own approach, using the route they had planned to avoid the exterior patrols. As he reached the concealed entrance Valeria had identified, he heard the first sounds of commotion from inside the mansion, shouts, the crash of breaking glass, and then the unmistakable pop of gunfire. The cellar was a maze of wine racks and storage rooms that stretched far beneath the mansion's foundation. Marcus moved methodically through the darkness, following the blueprints Valeria had memorized and shared with him. His flashlight beam cut through shadows that seemed to press in from all sides, and with each step he became more aware of the weight of history in this place. How many victims had Blackwood brought here over the years? How many lives had ended in these underground chambers? He found Jenny in the 4th room he checked, bound to a chair but alive and conscious. Her eyes widened with relief when she saw him, though the duct tape over her mouth prevented her from speaking. Marcus quickly cut her bonds and removed the tape, holding a finger to his lips to indicate the need for silence. "Marcus," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "How did you find me?" "Long story," he replied, helping her to her feet. "Can you walk?" She nodded, though he could see she was shaky from her ordeal. "There were others, Marcus. I heard voices crying. I think there might be more prisoners." The words hit him like ice water. They had planned for a quick extraction, but if there were other victims, he thought of Valeria upstairs creating chaos to cover their escape while facing Blackwood alone. "Show me," he said. They moved deeper into the cellar complex, following the sounds Jenny had described. In a section that didn't appear on any of the blueprints Valeria had acquired, they found them. 3 young women, all matching the profile of Blackwood's previous victims, all very much alive but terrified beyond measure. Marcus's radio crackled with Valeria's voice, strained and urgent. "Detective, you need to get out now. Blackwood knows you're here and he's sending people to the cellar." "We found more victims," Marcus replied quietly. 3 women, all alive. "We can't leave them." A pause, then, "Understood, but hurry. I can't hold them much longer." The evacuation became a nightmare of logistics and terror. 4 traumatized civilians, narrow corridors, and the growing sound of pursuit from above. Marcus coordinated the escape with the precision his training had drilled into him, but he knew they were running out of time. They had almost reached the exit when the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. Marcus pushed the group against the wall, weapon drawn, as footsteps echoed through the corridors behind them. "Well, well," a cultured voice said from the darkness ahead. "Detective Marcus Reed, you've caused me considerable inconvenience tonight." Vincent Blackwood stepped into the light, flanked by 2 armed men. He was exactly what Marcus had expected. Elegant, silver-haired, radiating the kind of confidence that came from a lifetime of believing the rules didn't apply to him. What Marcus hadn't expected was the blood on his expensive tuxedo, or the wild gleam in his eyes. "Where is she?" Blackwood asked, his tone conversational despite the circumstances. Your mysterious partner, the woman who's been hunting me like some avenging angel. Gone, Marcus lied, keeping his weapon trained on the billionaire. She got what she came for and left. Blackwood's laugh was genuinely amused. Oh, detective, you disappoint me. After all the trouble she's gone to, all the years of planning and preparation, do you really think Valeria Cross would leave without finishing what she started? The sound of her name on his lips made Marcus's blood boil. Let them go, he said, gesturing toward the terrified women behind him. This is between you and me now. No, Blackwood replied, his smile taking on a predatory edge. This is between me and her. It always has been. You're just collateral damage. Before Marcus could respond, the lights went out again. In the darkness that followed, all hell broke loose. Gunfire erupted from multiple directions, muzzle flashes creating a strobing nightmare of violence and chaos. Marcus threw himself over Jenny and the other women, trying to shield them from the crossfire while returning fire at the muzzle flashes ahead. When the emergency lighting flickered back on, Blackwood was gone. One of his men lay motionless on the concrete floor, while the other had vanished into the maze of corridors. Marcus quickly assessed the group behind him, shaken but unharmed. Move, he ordered, leading them toward the exit. Now. They emerged into the night air to find the mansion blazing with light and activity. Police cars and ambulances lined the circular drive while fire department vehicles worked to contain a blaze that had erupted in the mansion's east wing. In the chaos of emergency responders and fleeing guests, Marcus managed to get Jenny and the other women to safety. It was only then that he realized Valeria was nowhere to be found. He found her 20 minutes later in the garden behind the mansion, sitting on a stone bench beside a reflecting pool. She was alive but wounded, her left arm cradled against her body and blood seeping through her tactical vest. Beside her on the bench lay Vincent Blackwood's lifeless form, a crimson rose placed carefully over his heart. Is it finished? Marcus asked, settling beside her on the bench. Valeria nodded slowly. It's finished. Lucia can rest now. They sat in silence for a moment, the sounds of sirens and shouting distant in the night air. Finally, Valeria turned to look at him, her amber eyes reflecting the light from the mansion. What happens now? She asked. Marcus considered the question. By all rights, he should arrest her for vigilante justice. But the women they had saved tonight would live because of Valeria's actions, and a monster who had escaped justice for years was finally dead. Now, he said, reaching over to take her uninjured hand, you let me take you to a hospital, and then we figure out what comes next. Valeria's fingers intertwined with his, warm and real and alive. Together, Marcus confirmed, and for the first time in 8 years, Valeria Cross allowed herself to believe in the possibility of a future beyond revenge. As dawn broke over the city, Detective Marcus Reed and the woman who had threatened him with death walked hand in hand toward an uncertain but hopeful tomorrow, leaving the ghosts of the past finally at rest behind them.